Part 131. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1301. Chapter 1301. Wei Lingnan, who is not picky about food. Wei Lingnan said, "Impossible, you wait in the hospital, I will come right away." By the time he arrived, Jin Linger had already received a new round of treatment and was sleeping on the hospital bed with her eyes closed. The fever had not completely subsided. Wei Lingnan checked Jin Linger's condition under Xia Yingluo's worried eyes, straightened up, and looked a little unpredictable. Xia Yingluo asked him anxiously, "How is the situation?" Wei Lingnan looked down at her and said in a dark voice, "Whenever your friend has a problem, the first thing you think of is blaming me." Xia Yingluo was stunned for a moment. "That's not what I meant. Could it be that Jin Linger's attack was not due to the medicine? However, who told him yesterday that he would get better after taking medicine, but in the end such an emergency situation occurred? The first thing anyone thought of was that there was something wrong with the medicine, right?" Wei Lingnan smiled lightly, with a slight coldness in his eyes. Xia Yingluo felt that something was wrong. This man was moody and seemed to be going crazy again. Xia Yingluo became nervous and said to him cautiously, "Isn't it the problem with your medicine?" "I seem to be meddling in other people's business." Wei Lingnan did not answer her. He only said, "Good intentions are treated as a fool's gall. Since you don't trust me, why do you need me to rescue you?" After saying that, he turned around and left. Xia Yingluo grabbed him and said, "Wei Lingnan, she didn't dare to let him go like this." She still hadn't figured out why Jin Linger's condition suddenly worsened. Even if it wasn't caused by his medicine, who could do you know if it will conflict with the hospital's treatment plan? People's lives were at stake, so she didn't dare to be careless, so she had to say good things to Wei Lingnan. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have doubted you. Don't just ignore it." Wei Lingnan's voice was a little cold. "Let go." Xia Yingluo held onto him tightly, with pleading eyes. Wei Lingnan sneered, "Xia Yingluo, I'm not a dog that comes and goes when you call me. Every time you have difficulties and need help, you think of me. When you think I'm of no use, you throw me aside. No, do you think you are too snobby?" Xia Yingluo was choked by him, but she really didn't think about this problem. However, thinking about it carefully, it turned out to be true. Except for the few times when Jin Linger needed treatment, she took the initiative to find Wei Lingnan. She usually found it annoying even if Wei Lingnan himself appeared in front of her. "I apologize," she said. Wei Lingnan still looked at her with a sneer, "Apologizing so unwillingly, have I wronged you?" Xia Yingluo wanted to grab something and throw it directly in his face. This person didn't even think about it. It was not without reason that she was usually so repulsive to him. Fortunately, he felt aggrieved. But at this moment, for Jin Linger, she had to give in and humbly said, "I'm not unwilling. Tell me, what do you want to do to continue to help?" The room was very quiet. Suddenly, Wei Lingnan stretched out her hand and raised her fair and delicate chin. Xia Yingluo's heart skipped a beat, but did not move. The man in front of her lowered her head in this posture, and kissed her with his cool lips. It was a little temptation at first, but soon turned into a violent plunder. Xia Yingluo was almost suffocated by his kiss. Her brain was deprived of oxygen and she was so dizzy that she could not stand upright. Instinctively, her hands climbed up his back. Perhaps this action pleased him, and his mania gradually became gentle, and finally fell silent. "This is interest," he said in her ear. "Xia Yingluo, you owe me a favor. I will wait until I think of how to repay it." It was hard to repay the favor she owed to this perverted beast, but now Xia Yingluo had no choice. She gritted her teeth and agreed, "Okay." Wei Lingnan smiled, but his smile was still cold. How much could the girl in front of her sacrifice for her friends? In her eyes, is it true that no one is more important than Wei Lingnan? Xia Yingluo was sensitive to the low air pressure around him, but didn't know why. If you say more, you will make more mistakes. If you say less, you will make fewer mistakes. She stood aside calmly and watched Wei Lingnan carefully inspect the golden bell on the hospital bed again. This time Xia Yingluo didn't dare to ask him how he was doing, and just looked at him helplessly. Wei Lingnan looked down at her small appearance, the unknown fire in his heart arose again, and his voice became colder, "Is your friend an idiot?" Xia Yingluo wanted to call him an idiot, but after looking at Wei Lingnan's face, she didn't dare. Yes, Linger is not as smart as you, she carefully flattered him and asked, "What's wrong with her?" Wei Lingnan did not continue to make things difficult for her this time, saying, "She did not have a cold caused by wind cold, but pneumonia caused by a viral cold, so my medicine will be ineffective. Your friend must have been exposed to something infected with the virus." Xia Yingluo was stunned for a moment, she didn't expect the truth to be like this. But she obviously caught a cold after falling into the water and catching a cold, she said. Wei Lingnan sneered, "Your entertainment industry is so chaotic, how can you guarantee that no one harmed her?" Xia Yingluo originally wanted to refute, but found that what Wei Lingnan said was right. Who can tell clearly what happened in the crew? Only Jin Linger knows what exactly happened. Xia Yingluo sighed and said to Wei Lingnan, "Thank you for coming to see her. It's getting late." She originally wanted to ask Wei Lingnan to go back and rest, but when she saw his gloomy face, she remembered his words, "If it comes, it will go." She forcefully swallowed the words that wanted to drive him away. "You came here in such a hurry, haven't you had lunch yet?" She changed the subject obediently. "I know there is a good restaurant near the hospital, let's go eat together." Wei Lingnan's complexion improved and he went to the restaurant with her. Having missed their meal, the restaurant was not very busy, so the waiter came over and asked them what they wanted to eat. Wei Lingnan ordered a few things at random, and they were all her favorite dishes. She couldn't help but glance at him, wondering if this was a coincidence. Only then did she suddenly realize that she had never known what Wei Lingnan liked to eat. She really knew very little about him. "What do you like to eat?" she asked cautiously. Wei Lingnan glanced at her, making Xia Yingluo feel inexplicably nervous. "I don't mean anything else," she explained in a superfluous manner, "you are my boyfriend, but I don't even know what you like to eat. It's too unreasonable." At this time, sumptuous dishes were served. Wei Lingnan picked up the bowl and chopsticks and ate elegantly, saying, "There's nothing I particularly like to eat." Thinking back to the harsh conditions on Scatena, you could eat whatever was available, so there was no room for pickiness. This has developed a good habit of not being picky about food. How could it be so easy to change after hundreds of millions of years? Xia Yingluo seemed to remember what kind of environment he grew up in, and suddenly there was a trace of sympathy in her eyes. This man's life was really not easy. "I'll make delicious food for you when I get the chance," she said with a slight smile. "You will definitely find the food you like." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 1302. Chapter 1302 Secret Transaction. Wei Lingnan glanced at her and said nothing, but his expression softened. This meal was strangely harmonious. After the meal, Xia Yingluo did not worry about Jin Linger and returned to the hospital to visit her. Wei Lingnan didn't trust her, so he followed her back to the hospital. The two of them walked along the corridor of the hospital, and the medical staff and patients who came and went looked sideways. He was so handsome, and she was so good-looking, standing together like a perfect picture. Back in the ward, Jin Linger had already woken up. She was grabbing her phone and didn't know what she was reading. While looking at it, she cursed, "Assholes, what a bunch of big assholes. I'm obviously sick, how can I act like a big deal? I'm so angry. Kill me. Xia Yingluo looked at her with a surprised tone. Ling are you finally awake? Yingluo, are you here? Jin Ling looked up and saw her friend. She quickly put down her phone and raised a smile. The doctor said I'm fine, don't worry, I just need to stay in the hospital for a while. Hearing what she said, Xia Yingluo felt a little relieved. He sat down beside her bed and asked, why are you so angry just after you woke up? Who are you angry with? Speaking of this, Jin Ling became furious and handed her the phone. Yingluo, look, those tabloid reporters are too much. What nonsense are they writing? I'm a newcomer trying to be a big name, and I've only been on the set for a few days. I was too lazy to find a substitute and said that I couldn't even do my job as an actor just because I was your friend. I was really off. Xia Yingluo patted her shoulder comfortingly and leaned her head to read the report. As expected, the writing was very unpleasant. Her eyebrows could not help but frown slightly. How come what happened just the day before yesterday spread so quickly? Even though the drama was a big production and paparazzi often sneaked in to investigate the situation, the news came out too quickly. Jin Ling hasn't released a formal work yet, so it's definitely not a good thing to establish an image of an idiot who relies on connections to be domineering and doesn't work seriously. Recalling the virus incident mentioned by Wei Lingnan, Xia Yingluo couldn't help but ask, Ling did you offend someone? Or maybe I offended Tang Yuan and the others that day, and they were waiting for an opportunity to take revenge on you. Jin Ling had never thought of this possibility, and was stunned when she heard this. How could it be possible? They aren't that bad, right? It was clearly Tang Yuan and the others who provoked Xia Yingluo first that day, and Xia Yingluo was just fighting back. If so, it would be too narrow-minded to seek revenge without knowing what is good. Xia Yingluo said, there is no lower limit to how bad people can be. She told Jin Ling Wei Lingnan's speculation about viral infection and asked her, did you come into contact with anything that might carry the virus that day? Jin Ling was stunned when she heard this. It took her a while to say, is it really a viral infection? Xia Yingluo glanced at Wei Lingnan, who was standing silently in the ward. Wei Lingnan looked indifferent. It's definitely a viral infection. Xia Yingluo said, Wei's biopharmaceutical technology is very powerful. He said yes, so he is definitely right. Although Jin Ling didn't quite believe Wei Lingnan, but since her good friend said this, she believed in her good friend's judgment and sighed, these people are really vicious. After thinking about it, that day I didn't come into contact with anything special. There was only one thing, they gave me a blanket after I came out of the water, and I started sneezing not long after I put on that blanket. Do you still have that blanket? Xia Yingluo asked. Jin Ling shook her head blankly. Wei Lingnan interjected, if it was really a blanket, they would have destroyed the body long ago. Xia Yingluo thought it right and asked Jin Ling who gave you the blanket? I will find someone to investigate and I will give you justice. Jin Ling told her the name. Xia Yingluo held her hand apologetically. Ling I'm sorry, this happened all because of me. If she had not had a conflict with Tang Yuan, those people would not have thought of taking revenge on Jin Ling How could a helpless newcomer who had just debuted be a match for the star-studded movie queen? Jin Ling smiled, you are my good friend. You know what to do so well. I was the one who invited you to visit the class. You were scolded for no reason, so I feel guilty. Besides, it may not be the case. By coming at you, maybe I have offended someone unintentionally. In any case, we will have a conclusion once we send people to investigate. Xia Yingluo helped her scold Tang Yuan and others, and then scolded the tabloid reporters, but she still couldn't get over her anger. The people she sent to investigate were very efficient and gave the results that evening. It was Tang Yuan who ordered them to do it. I must make her look good, Xia Yingluo said angrily. Jin Ling was a little embarrassed. Forget it Yingluo, don't go to war for me. Why is it for you? Xia Yingluo was afraid that she would have a psychological burden and take the matter on herself. They clearly have a grudge against me before they attack you. They are slapping me in the face. If I don't return it, why would I be called Xia? Wreaths. Jin Linger couldn't help but sighed. There was a knock at the door. The two girls looked up and saw a man in a suit with a serious face standing at the door. It was Du Zheng. Mr. Du. Brother Du Zheng. The two girls greeted each other, but Wei Lingnan, who had been accompanying Xia Yingluo, just glanced at Du Zheng and said nothing. Du Zheng walked to the bedside and seemed a little stiff. I heard that you are sick. Let me come to see if you are feeling better. Jin Linger said politely, much better. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Du. Xia Yingluo was not so polite anymore and glared at him. Brother Du Zheng, what's the matter with you? You are poaching Linger from your Du family. This is your first film. To treat her like this, you poach her on purpose? No, Du Zheng said. He had a headache. If he judged Jin Linger with his professional vision, he might not be qualified. The reason why he poached this girl to the Du family was actually entrusted by Li Lei. Li Lei didn't want his daughter's best friend to end up with the emperor, fearing that his daughter would interfere with him in the future. However, Tianyi's intention of poaching people was too obvious, and his daughter would see through his intentions, so he had to compromise and entrust Du to poach people. It would be better for my daughter's friend to fall into the Du family than to fall into the hands of the emperor. That's why Du Zheng signed Jin Linger. It's just that this secret agreement with Li Lei will not be told to the two girls. I didn't take good care of you, Du Zheng said to Jin Linger. Take good care of yourself. Jin Linger was a little embarrassed. Mr. Du, you are too polite. Polite? I think you are too polite, Linger. My illness was framed by Tang Yuan. What should I do? I overslept. There is another update tonight. Everyone has been waiting for a long time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1303. Chapter 1303, Love and Righteousness. Du Zheng frowned secretly. He didn't expect that this matter also involved Tang Yuan, which was a bit tricky. Tang Yuan is a popular movie queen and the heroine of this drama. The box office of this drama depends on her. If Tang Yuan is touched at this juncture, it will probably ruin the whole drama. He is for businessmen, acting on impulse is a taboo. Jin Linger seemed to see his embarrassment and asked her friend, Yingluo. Xia Yingluo was not happy. I am fighting for you. Du Zheng looked at the two girls in front of him and made a decision. Tang Yuan cannot be touched in this movie. I will give you an explanation when the movie is finished. This kind of big stars bullying newcomers happens from time to time. Who would really take it seriously? Today it was Jin Linger and Xia Yingluo. If it were anyone else, I'm afraid Du Zheng would still think they were being unreasonable. Why would they be in the entertainment industry if they couldn't bear this grievance? How many of today's big stars didn't come from newcomers who endured humiliation and heavy burdens? Xia Yingluo persisted. Then we have to wait until the end of the Year of the Monkey. Brother Du Zheng, can you be sincere? She was already thinking about whether to find someone to beat Tang Yuan in a sack. It would be best to beat her until her nose was bruised and her face was swollen. Like Jin Linger, she was unable to film. Jin Linger called her awkwardly again. Yingluo, she really didn't want to see her good friend making things difficult for her. She was an insignificant newcomer, and she felt uneasy being treated with such preciousness. Du Zheng looked at her, who was embarrassed. For some reason, he felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. Some girls, such as Xia Yingluo, can live a flamboyant life, and no matter how arrogant and willful they are still held in the palm of their hands and pampered. But what about Jin Ling-er? Even if you are asserting your deserved rights, you must be cautious. He felt a little irritable for no reason and said to Jin Ling-er, Tang Yuan can't move at the moment. If you want anything else, I'll help you find a way. Jin Ling-er glanced at him, as if judging the truth or falsehood of his words. After all, the two of them had only met each other a few times and were not close to each other. After thinking about it, she said, I don't want to use a stunt double, I want to finish the filming myself. Let me go back to the set, Mr. Du. Don't those tabloid reporters always say that she is not dedicated? She had to show her dedication to them once. No matter what, it's a role I accepted, so I have to finish filming even when I'm sick. I won't allow you to be so sick. Du Zheng refused without thinking. There are actors who filmed while sick, but for some reason, Du Zheng didn't want Jin Ling-er to be like this. Xia Yingluo also advised, Ling-er, you still have a fever. How can you take pictures if you are not in good health? Get more rest. As he spoke, he turned to look at Du Zheng, Brother Du Zheng, please ask someone to postpone Ling-er's play for a few days. As for the loss, I will make up for it. Jin Ling-er was shocked, no. Yingluo she also knew very well how much money the crew would need to pay for one more day of delay. Xia Yingluo's kindness was too great, and she didn't want her good friend to burn so much money for herself. Du Zheng thought about it and felt that this was not impossible. Businessmen were pursuing profits. As long as someone could fill the gap, the delay would be delayed for a few days. But he glanced at Jin Ling-er's anxious look and said, are you unwilling? After all, they were the ones helping Jin Ling-er this time, and it would not be a good thing if she didn't want to. Jin Ling-er was anxious, I think it's right to film by myself, but I don't want others to say that I rely on you for everything. Yingluo, thank you for your kindness. You will make me feel guilty if you do this. But Xia Yingluo was also troubled. She couldn't really let Tang Yuan and the others get what they wanted and use a stand-in to replace the role that Jin Ling-er had fought so hard for. While in a stalemate, suddenly Wei Lingnan, who had not spoken for a long time, chuckled. Everyone turned to look at him. Why are you laughing? Xia Yingluo asked. Wei Lingnan said calmly, why is it so troublesome? Isn't it easy for her to go to filming in good health immediately? I can give her another medicine that will take effect immediately. He glanced at Xia Yingluo and said, there were no side effects this time. Xia Yingluo hesitated as she remembered that Jin Ling-er's condition worsened after taking his medicine last time. Wei Lingnan said, last time, you didn't understand the symptoms and mistook the viral infection for a cold. This time, we are sure to get the right symptoms. Xia Yingluo believed in Wei Lingnan in her heart. With his amazing background and top-notch high technology, they are all very miraculous, but after all, this is not her body, but Jin Ling-er's. Will Jin Ling-er trust him again after having already experienced a failure? She couldn't help but glance at Jin Ling-er. Jin Ling-er also looked at her. Yingluo, do you believe Wei Lingnan? Xia Yingluo hesitated and nodded. Even though this man was sometimes perverted and unreasonable, there was never a time when what he said was unreliable. So Jin Ling-er smiled, if you believe in him, then I will believe it too. Ling-er, Xia Yingluo called in a low voice. Jin Ling-er looked at her soothingly, he is your boyfriend. Of course I believe in your vision. Besides, there is no better way, right? In any case, getting the medicine from Wei Lingnan can cure the disease. The loss is smaller than letting Yingluo spend money to buy the crew's time. Xia Yingluo hesitated for a moment and nodded. Wei Lingnan said, I'll ask someone to bring the medicine. No, just when everyone was about to give Jin Ling-er medicine, Du Zheng spoke firmly. Xia Yingluo glanced at him in surprise. Jin Ling-er was also surprised, Mr. Du. You are not a doctor. Du Zheng looked directly at Wei Lingnan without hesitation, I can't let her use your medicine. Wei Lingnan was non-committal and raised his eyebrows slightly. Mr. Du, Jin Ling-er called out, it'll be okay. Even if something happens, I won't let the crew take responsibility. I just want to rush back to filming as soon as possible. Du Zheng's face darkened. No, why? Did she think he didn't let her take the medicine because he was afraid that something would happen to her and the crew would be held responsible? This realization made Du Zheng feel even more irritable. Xia Yingluo was unhappy. This won't work, and that won't work either. Brother Du Zheng, what do you want? Are you here to visit Ling Er today or to make her angry? Could it be a spy sent by Tang Yuan? No. Ah. I'm not a spy sent by Tang Yuan. It was rare that Du Zheng explained seriously. He pondered for a moment and then said, I will inform the crew to move Jin Linger's role to a later time without a substitute. Jin Linger, you just recuperate well here and be discharged when you feel better. Jin Linger opened her eyes wide. What does it mean? Does he know how much money this will cost? You. She looked at Du Zheng, stammering and speechless. Xia Yingluo smiled. On the other hand, that's right, it's affectionate and righteous. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1304. Chapter 1304. How to thank him. Xia Yingluo said goodbye with a smile. I have been with you for a day, and it's time for me to leave. Brother Du Zheng, please have dinner with Ling Er. She is still sick and needs someone to take care of her. There are not many people in the world who dare to ask Du Zheng to take care of patients, and Xia Yingluo is one of them. Jin Ling Er was a little embarrassed. No need. Du Zheng said, okay. Xia Yingluo smiled, pulled Wei Lingnan and left. In the quiet ward, only Jin Linger was lying on the bed and Du Zheng was standing beside the bed. Du Zheng's tall figure and the oppressive look in his suit made Jin Linger feel a little uncomfortable. She laughed dryly and said, Mr. Du, thank you for coming to see me. Du Zheng's expression was calm. You are an artist of the Du family, and it is right for me to come and see you. Jin Linger didn't know what to say. The two of them were neither relatives nor friends, so the topics they could talk about were really limited. Du Zheng probably felt a little embarrassed and asked her, how is your health? It's much better than when I was sent to the hospital. I will definitely work hard to recover and strive to be discharged from the hospital as soon as possible, she said quickly, remembering that Du Zheng spent so much money to extend the shooting time, and added, Mr. Du, I'm really sorry. This time I caused losses to the crew. She still knows this. With her reputation and acting skills, the crew is purely losing money this time. Du Zheng looked unmoved. This is my own decision and has nothing to do with you. Jin Linger lowered her head slightly. She knew very well that if he didn't care about Xia Yingluo's face, she would be nothing. Outside the ward, a nurse pushed a cart to deliver dinner as usual. Du Zheng took her lunch box and filled it with porridge, as well as a few soft and chewy foods, and put them on the movable dining table and pushed them over. Jin Linger said, I'm so sorry, Mr. Du, how can I let you take care of me? Why don't you go back first? I promised Yingluo, Du Zheng said, I will leave after you finish eating. Seeing his persistence, Jin Linger couldn't say anything, so she could only pick up the spoon and eat silently. The nutritious meals in the hospital were not delicious to begin with, not to mention that under the supervision of a man as big and unsmiling as Du Zheng, Jin Linger ate so hard that she didn't even know how to taste it. Finally, she couldn't stand the weird atmosphere anymore. She felt heartbroken and looked up. With Du Zheng. Mr. Du, you really don't have to listen to Yingluo. It doesn't matter if you spend money to delay the shooting date or accompany me to dinner. Yingluo is too worried about me. How can I be so delicate? You have so many things to do, you don't have to worry so much about me. Du Zheng was slightly startled. Seeing her seriousness, he looked at her deeply. Growing up, I don't know how many girls tried to get close to him and tried their best to create opportunities to be alone with him. How could there be anyone like her who took advantage of the opportunity and chased him away? This girl really brought him too many surprises. From the first time they met, she was so embarrassed and so fiercely fighting for her friends, so reckless and so brave, that his eyes followed her unconsciously. Today in the ward, there was another accident. "You don't like seeing me?" he asked. "No, no," Jinlinger said incoherently. How could she not like to see him? No. She just didn't like to see him. This man gave people too much oppression. Different from Yingluo's somewhat mysterious boyfriend and brother, the Du Zheng in front of her had a different sense of existence. He was serious and cautious, which made her feel uncomfortable. People can't help but want to sit upright. She is not used to it. Du Zheng doesn't quite understand girls' thoughts. Seeing her like this, Du Zheng frowned slightly. Jinlinger thought he was angry and said quickly, "I really don't like seeing you. It's just that I don't want to rely on Yingluo for everything. You have to take care of me because of her entrustment. This makes me feel, it's useless." She became more and more frustrated and her voice dropped. "That's it?" Du Zheng was surprised that she would have such an idea. If anyone else could have become good friends with Yingluo, it would be too late to take advantage of her. It seems that Yingluo was right. Disregarding your relationship with Yingluo, you are also an artist under my banner, Du Zheng said steadily. "I personally recruited you into the company and personally told the crew not to make things difficult. By doing this, they not only bullied you, and you even ignored my order. I came to see you and let them know that you are not easy to mess with. The filming will be extended for a few days, the cost will be higher and the profit will be reduced. It is also necessary to teach the director a lesson." It's hard for him to say it so grandly. Jinlinger felt like she was going to faint. Is it true? Does this mean that beating a dog depends on the owner? Is she the dog? She thought silently in her heart and glanced at Du Zheng carefully. It was hard to guess what this man was thinking when he was expressionless. Forget it, the matter was over. Since he refused to leave, there was nothing she could do. It's better to enjoy his care in peace and contentment. So, Jinlinger laughed, "Mr. Du hasn't eaten yet, right? Let's eat together? The patient meal is terrible. How about we eat outside the hospital?" She seemed to come to life in an instant, which surprised Du Zheng, but he only said, "It's not good." Jinlinger's smile froze on her face. "You are a patient, so you should eat nutritious meals." Du Zheng looked at her face that suddenly collapsed. "The food and drinks outside are not clean. I will bring you a meal cooked by the Du family cook tomorrow." "Ah, are you coming tomorrow?" Jinlinger was surprised. Du Zheng was also surprised by what he said without thinking. However, having said it all, he nodded solemnly. "I told you that you are an artist under my banner, and I want to take care of you." Jinlinger. Which big boss takes care of small employees like this? As expected, it's better to accept Yingluo's instructions. The two of them spent the evening in a strange way with their own thoughts. Perhaps it was the hospital's careful treatment or Du Zheng's company, but Jinlinger's condition improved within a few days and she was discharged from the hospital to continue filming. This time, Du Zheng personally drove her to the set. When she appeared with him, everyone was silent. What this meant was very clear. The big boss was here to support this little-known artist. Tang Yuan's face didn't look good. Maybe Xia Yingluo was beyond the reach of Tianyi's daughter, but Du Zheng was definitely a current manager. How many scenes of himself had been edited out of this drama, the premiere, and various publicity? How many faces will be shown at the event is a matter that can be finalized by President Du. Looking at Du Zheng's slightly warning eyes, Tang Yuan did not dare to make a mistake. The rest of the filming went smoothly, and there were no further problems. Xia Yingluo was very happy to see that Jinlinger's filming went smoothly. Thinking of Wei Lingnan's contribution to this matter, she felt that she should be grateful. What should I express my gratitude for? The girl held her chin and thought for a long time. By the way, didn't she say that she wanted to make something for him to eat with her own hands last time? How about making some desserts? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 1305. Chapter 1305 Dessert and Scarf. When the mood struck, she just made it, setting up a grand ceremony in her kitchen, showing off her lifelong cooking skills, and the sweet aroma of butter and caramel overflowed. Li Rui walked in, leaned at the door of the kitchen and smiled. It's rare that I want to make dessert today. It's different when I have a boyfriend. Xia Yingluo, wearing a light pink bear apron, turned around and saw him. Don't steal that cherry. I picked it out with great difficulty. Li Rui casually threw another one into his mouth. Isn't it just for Wei Lingnan? If I don't eat it, it will be a waste for him. Xia Yingluo glared at him angrily. Li Rui smiled lazily and with a touch of sarcasm. It's true that one generation is worse than the next. Why don't you learn more from our mother? Look at how our mother coaxed our father into submission. How much my father pampered her. She is not allowed to put a finger in the kitchen, so why does she have to wash her hands and make soup for others when she comes to your place? Why don't you learn more from Dad? Xia Yingluo retorted, you're too lazy. Li Rui just smiled, and the sunlight shone on him through the tops of the ginkgo trees outside the window, making him look leisurely and handsome. Xia Yingluo lowered her head, carefully cut a piece of yellow peach, and carefully decorated it on the cream. Li Rui asked her, is it worth it for that man? Even if a stranger helped you, you should give me a small gift to express your gratitude, Xia Yingluo said without raising her head. By the way, how did you know that I was giving it to Wei Lingnan? Because he is not a stranger in your heart, Li Rui sneered. If he was really a stranger, you would rather let the butler buy some cigarettes, wine, and watches. This second brother understands her quite well. His faint words made her feel a little startled. Soon, she shook her head again and smiled to herself. Maybe it was a fate in her life. When she met the person she liked, she met him. Even if he was an alien, he would still be there. She is often perverted and unreasonable, but she is like a moth cast into fire, unknowingly attracted and losing her mind. After the snacks were ready, she packed them in the most exquisite boxes and took them to Weishi Biopharmaceutical Group in person. It is already late autumn, the sycamore leaves are flying on the streets, and the air is clean and crisp. She planned to give him a surprise and did not tell him in advance that she was coming. When she arrived at the front desk, she heard the receptionist say, Ms. Xia, please go and sit in the reception room for a while. Mr. Wei is busy at the moment. What are you busy with? She asked. Originally I just asked casually, but unexpectedly the lady at the front desk hesitated. This actually aroused Xia Yingluo's curiosity. She said to the front desk lady, I'm going in to look for him now. You are not allowed to inform me. Do you understand? The lady at the front desk looked embarrassed. She was from the Wei family. If she didn't do her job well, she would be fired. Xia Yingluo seemed to have read through her thoughts and smiled brightly. If you offend me, you will still be expelled. The lady at the front desk knew that Mr. Wei had a special regard for her, and when she said this, she almost cried. Xia Yingluo changed the subject, but if you tell me what Wei Lingnan is doing inside, I will consider letting you go. Weighing the importance, the lady at the front desk gritted her teeth and said, Miss Gu Jingxiu is here and is talking to Mr. Wei inside. Mr. Wei didn't order this matter to be kept secret anyway, so it shouldn't matter if she told Miss Xia, right? However, one of these two famous ladies claims to be Wei Lingnan's fiancée, and the other has an ambiguous relationship with Wei Lingnan. People have long speculated what kind of love triangle this is. I wonder if they will fight when they meet? It's actually Gu Jingxiu who's here? Xia Yingluo felt as if a tiny thorn had been stabbed in her heart, making her very uncomfortable. She lowered her head and looked at the snacks in her hand. Okay, Wei Lingnan, I work so hard to make snacks for you, but in the end you are still involved with other women. Her beautiful eyes moved slightly. She turned her head and said to the driver who escorted her to Wei's, Uncle Son, please watch the front desk and don't let her announce my arrival. The driver responded. The lady at the front desk was so shocked that she almost cried. Miss Xia, didn't you say you wanted to let me go? I meant to consider letting you go, but I didn't say I would definitely let you go. It's not easy for white-collar workers. He said, I asked the driver to watch you. I actually meant to let you go, so that Mr. Wei would not blame you and make things difficult for you. If he fires you, you will come to Tianyi and your salary will be doubled. Okay. With just one word, the receptionist turned from resentful to grateful in an instant. Who wouldn't want a good thing like doubling their salary? She stayed at the front desk obediently, under the watch of the driver, and really stopped trying to tell anyone inside. Xia Yingluo has been to this building several times. She remembered that Wei Lingnan's office was on the top floor, so she went up quietly. Her skills were very good, and she perfectly avoided surveillance and possible alarms along the way. She arrived at the door without anyone noticing, and the door was ajar. A voice came from the facade. It was Gu Jingxiu. Lingnan, the weather has been cold recently. I knitted a scarf for you with my own hands. Do you like it? Xia Yingluo was very angry when she heard this. Who is this woman? She knitted a scarf for her boyfriend. She cautiously poked her head out and saw Gu Jingxiu wearing an elegant sweater and skirt through the narrow door, with exquisite makeup, looking at Wei Lingnan lovingly. She was holding a scarf in her hand. It could be seen that it was made of very good materials and put a lot of effort into weaving it. From the style to the workmanship, it was impeccable. Wei Lingnan did not reach out to pick it up. You don't have to do this. Xia Yingluo's raging anger calmed down a little. Finally this man still has a conscience and understands that he can't accept things from wild women. Gu Jingxiu felt aggrieved. Lingnan, what did I do wrong to do this to me? We have been good friends for so many years, but since you met Xia Yingluo, everything has changed. I know she is younger than me, more beautiful than me, but, who in this world loves you more than me? As he spoke, his eyes turned red. Xia Yingluo looked at the scene and sneered in her heart, what a clever word. Wei Lingnan was unmoved. It's none of Yingluo's business. Just go back with your things. Xia Yingluo almost wanted to applaud Wei Lingnan. This is her boyfriend. Gu Jingxiu was unwilling to give in. Lingnan, take your scarf and go. Wei Lingnan's voice was cold. Gu Jingxiu, if you leave now, everyone will want to see you again in the future, and don't do anything that offends me. When talking about this, Gu Jingxiu's face turned a little pale, but the experience of getting along with Wei Lingnan over the years made her know that he was serious. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1306. Chapter 1306 Proposal. This man can be quite scary once he gets serious. Even though she was unwilling to do so, Gu Jingxiu had no choice but to lower her head, pick up her scarf, and said, I'm leaving, please take care of yourself. Turning around and going out, her posture was as graceful as a scene even at this time. However, as soon as she walked to the door, she saw Xia Yingluo face to face. Gu Jingxiu was slightly startled, and suddenly he felt angry. Has this woman been hiding by the door and eavesdropping? Was it possible to see how she had just made a fool of herself? Miss Xia, what are you trying to do secretly? Her voice was a little cold. Xia Yingluo smiled brightly and shook the snack in her hand happily, coming to bring food to my boyfriend. How can you be sneaky? I think you are the one who is really sneaky, Miss Gu, only if you have a ghost in your heart, you can see it, everything is suspicious. How can a single woman secretly come to someone else's boyfriend to give her a scarf without knowing how to avoid suspicion? She did hear it. Shame and anger spread in Gu Jingxiu's heart. As expected of a famous lady, Gu Jingxiu quickly controlled her emotions, smiled slightly, lowered her voice and said, "So you are here, no wonder Lingnan is like this." After saying that, he gave Xia Yingluo a meaningful look and passed her by. Xia Yingluo frowned. She felt uncomfortable even though this woman had fled. Was she implying that Wei Lingnan's rejection just now was for her, his real girlfriend? Xia Yingluo snorted. This was some kind of clumsy alienation plan, she would not fall for it. Slowly walk into the office. Wei Lingnan waved her hand gently, and the door behind her closed quietly, while several clean and bright glass windows opened, letting in the clear wind from high altitude. Her hair was blowing slightly in the wind and she asked him, "What are you doing?" "I guess you don't like her smell," Wei Lingnan smiled, "breathe some air." Xia Yingluo was speechless. What he said seemed to be what happened, so she put the things in her hands down on his desk without making any excuses. "Seeing that you performed well, I'll reward you." She raised her delicate little chin a little arrogantly and said to Wei Lingnan. Wei Lingnan's five senses are all sharper than those of ordinary humans. At this moment, he could smell what was inside through the gorgeous packaging box. "Did you make the dessert yourself?" "I promised you last time." Xia Yingluo motioned for him to open the box and looked at him expectantly. "Try it and see if it tastes good." The box was opened, and inside was a piece of cream cake as white and beautiful as a cloud. It was sprinkled with chopped nuts and icing sugar, and the aroma filled the air. Wei Lingnan looked down at it. "I like it very much." This is the first time she has cooked something for him. When they were on Scatena, they would eat raw meat when they were so hungry. Who would need delicious food? Looking at the small piece of beautiful cake, he couldn't help but think that maybe it would be nice to live on Earth. He took a sip, and the rich aroma and sweetness spread between his lips and teeth, flowing all the way into his heart. Xia Yingluo was a little nervous at first, but after seeing his relaxed expression, she also relaxed and smiled. "I knew you would like it." She was very confident in her cooking skills, and especially won the favor of her father in desserts. "It's true, everyone who has eaten it praises it." "I wanted to make you a cherry cake," she complained slightly. "It's all my fault, because he stole all the cherries." Wei Lingnan looked down at her. The girl in front of her was beautiful, lively, and charming, as if the whole world was shining in front of her eyes. "The devil sent him," and he said, "Then you will cook it for me to eat every day from now on." "Tian Tian? What a wonderful idea you have." Xia Yingluo laughed at him. "Do you really use me as your cook? Do you know how much my skills are worth in a shop outside?" "How much?" "I paid." There was a slight ripple in his eyes as calm as an ice lake. "Yingluo, marry me." She had a slight smile on her delicate and shiny face. When she heard his proposal without any warning, her smile froze. Suspecting that she was hearing something, she raised her head and looked at him in shock. She wanted to ask something but couldn't say a word. "Why are you proposing now? So fast?" Not long ago she was still hesitating whether to be his girlfriend. They don't know much about each other yet, and they haven't experienced the rough seas like their parents did. They went to the amusement park together, played hand in hand on the beach, and whispered together in the snowy night. This proposal came too suddenly and was too unreal. "Marry me," Wei Lingnan said again. He stepped forward and took 2 steps in her direction. The elegant but still dangerous pace of the apex predator in the universe made her instinctively retreat. This time, she finally found her voice. Why? "I want you," he said. "It's not like, it's not love, it's not any other word, it's Want. It is the desire that he has been pursuing for hundreds of millions of years, the imprint that is unforgettable, and he will get it at all costs, everything. I want you. She was a little frightened and took 2 steps back. But, don't you think it's too soon? She had a fever on her face and her heart was beating fast. I am not an adult yet. I won't turn 18 until next year. I can't marry you now. Human laws mean nothing to me. But you proposed. She looked at him with wide eyes. If you want to live on this planet with me, you must abide by human laws. Oh my God, what is she talking about? She obviously didn't mean that, she meant. Yes. She hasn't decided whether to marry him yet. Then get engaged first, he smiled. Yingluo, be my legitimate fiancé and tell everyone that you are mine. She didn't know how to answer him. There was no legal age limit for engagement. In fact, many wealthy families had precedents of getting engaged since childhood. But, that's not the problem at all. Okay. Let me think about it. She backed away, then backed away, her delicate little face getting redder and redder. Her body touched the wooden door, and she opened the door to escape in a panic. Wei Lingnan looked at her running back, his eyes darkened slightly, but he made no move. It was a bit sudden. He knew that maybe he should give her some time to think about it. He told himself this, but he still couldn't help but feel a faint sense of loss in his heart. The girl he had loved so much for so many years and wanted to be resurrected at all costs still didn't love him enough as in the previous life. Maybe the former tribesmen were right. He is a humble guardian, what can he do to match the high and mighty queen? In the office, the cakes she made were sweet and tempting, but he suddenly lost all appetite. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1307. Chapter 1307 Her Decision. Xia Yingluo ran downstairs quickly, her heart beating hard. The driver waiting at the door looked at her with concern. Miss, are you okay? She rubbed her red and hot face, shook her head and said it was okay, got in the car and returned home. It's the golden autumn, and the bright golden sycamore leaves are everywhere in my yard, covering the sky and the earth, making it beautiful and picturesque. The housekeeper in a crisp uniform stepped forward and opened the car door for her, bowed and smiled. Miss, you are back. Xia Yingluo took off her coat and handed it to him, and asked casually, where are my parents and second brother? The housekeeper said, today some new truffles were sent from France. The husband is preparing dinner for the wife in the kitchen. Miss, you have come back just in time. You are in good luck, he added. The wife is in the recording room on the 2nd floor. The second young master went out to meet friends. Every family has its own place. For some reason, Xia Yingluo felt a little melancholy. Since she was a child, she has envied the harmonious love between her parents and yearned for that kind of love. But is Wei Lingnan the right person? Will he care for his mother the way his father did in the future, holding her tenderly in his hands and treating her as a treasure in the world? Engaged. What a momentous thing. How should she choose? The phone rang, and it was Jin Linger's call. Yingluo, the crew has finished filming. Let me tell you, since Mr. Du accompanied me to the crew last time, those people have been very nice to me. They will never do it again. For making things difficult for me, Director Fang even added several scenes for me. I think I performed well this time, and the response will definitely be good after it is released. How about, let's go out to dinner and celebrate? She chattered for a long time, then realized that Yingluo on the other end of the phone didn't respond, and asked, what's wrong with you? Are you unhappy? No, Xia Yingluo said sadly. You still say no, but your voice is wrong. Jin Linger didn't believe it. What happened? Come on, come out and let me enlighten you. The two met in a restaurant. Xia Yingluo stole 2 truffles from home and gave them to the waiter at the high-end restaurant. Take them and let the chef cook them. The waiter knew the goods very well. When he saw the quality of the truffles, a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. This is a top quality new product this year. Miss, it's too expensive. Do you really trust us to make it? That's why I want a chef. Yingluo smiled lightly. Just do it. It doesn't matter if you do it well or bad. I just want to show my friends a taste in terms of cooking skills. There is probably no one in the world who can surpass her dear father. There were only a few, and Xia Yingluo didn't expect the chefs here to make the same quality food, but she expected that given the reputation of this restaurant, they wouldn't do anything bad. The waiter went there submissively. Jinlinger then said to Xia Yingluo, it turns out that the truffle just now is the legendary truffle. It's the first time I've seen the real thing. It's so rustic and so expensive. Xia Yingluo smiled and said, no matter how expensive it is, it's just the same food. I stole it from home. Steal? Jinlinger looked at her in surprise. Yingluo, don't scare me. Will your family come to me to pay for it later? What he said made Xia Yingluo laugh. Humph, I just can't stand the way my dad dotes on my mom so much. Why did you steal 2 truffles from him? He only has eyes for his wife. Well, she was just jealous. Her parents are so loving, but what about her? Trapped in the whirlpool of love, confused. Jinlinger narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at her. No, you have something on your mind. You are really my good friend. Xia Yingluo sighed and bit her fork. Jinlinger is persuasive. Come on, tell me and it will make me happy. Xia Yingluo raised her fork as if to hit her, but she laughed first. Okay, just to make you happy, she said, Wei Lingnan proposed to me. Ah, Jinlinger was horrified. What? You said that dangerous demon king. Oh no, I didn't mean that. Wei Lingnan proposed to you. Xia Yingluo didn't pay attention to her wording and nodded dully. After all, Wei Lingnan was a dangerous devil. If he was as gentle and considerate as her father, she wouldn't have to worry so much, right? Her heart was full of uneasiness about the unknown, and she couldn't help but ask Jinlinger, what do you think I should do? What should I do? Just refuse, Jinlinger said without thinking. But Xia Yingluo bit her fork in distress. Jinlinger blinked her eyes, looked at her little movements, and laughed. Yingluo, just admit it, you like him. Now, listen to this love expert's analysis. If you don't like him, you must just tell him directly. If you refuse, you will be so entangled only if you don't want to let him go. Since you like him, of course you have to hold on to this person, otherwise what will happen if he runs away? What kind of love expert are you? Xia Yingluo was amused by her and laughed. After a moment, she bit her fork and leaned on the table. But, I'm afraid. Her voice trailed off. What are you afraid of? Jinlinger said carelessly. Are you afraid that he doesn't love you enough? Or are you afraid that he won't want you one day? Resistance at home? Public opinion from the outside world? Come on, Yingluo, Jinlinger said, shrugging. If he doesn't love you, he won't propose. As for the fear that he won't love you one day? Who can guarantee this kind of thing? To put it bluntly, even if your parents are so happy and loving, there is no guarantee that they will never change their hearts forever. Don't glare at me, I'm just giving you an example, Jinlinger smiled dryly. Xia Yingluo found sadly that what she said made sense. In the matter of love, who can guarantee that someone will not change his heart? Jinlinger continued, if everyone is as hesitant as you are, it's better for everyone not to get married. I think Wei Lingnan is a bit cold, but he usually takes care of you when he should take care of you. To your friends, for example, I am not bad. If I can do this for a girl, he must have you in his heart. Yingluo, life is short. Let's talk about the future later. The key is to grasp the present. Since you like him, he also likes you. Why aren't you together? Xia Yingluo still hesitated. Jin Linger said, if you continue to hesitate like this, you may give other women an advantage. These words suddenly reminded Xia Yingluo of Gu Jingxiu. That day in the Wei building, anyone with eyes could see that Gu Jingxiu had no intention of giving up. That woman was so scheming and capable, and she had known Wei Lingnan since childhood. Could she one day him away from her? Xia Yingluo couldn't help but feel a sense of crisis. Compared to the alien Princess Aluo who was far away, Gu Jingxiu who was very close at hand was the real and urgent threat. Okay, I promise him, Xia Yingluo waved her fist in the air and said without hesitation. That's right. Come on, Jin Ling raised a glass to her encouragingly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1308. Chapter 1308 The First Snow. A few days later, the first snow of early winter fell. Wei Lingnan invited her to enjoy the snow, and the place was set at a restaurant with an elegant environment in the city. Xia Yingluo tried on several sets of clothes and finally selected a light-colored fine cashmere long skirt and coat. She looked very ladylike. When they went out, Li Rui laughed at her, "Woman in love, what's the use of pretending to be elegant? It's easy to change your country, but it's hard to change your nature. As soon as you speak, you will be exposed immediately." Although saying this, I still volunteered, "I'll drive you there." "You're not going on a date today," Xia Yingluo was a little surprised. Logically speaking, the first snowfall of the year is a good time for couples to go on a date, especially for someone like Li Rui, who has countless free time today. Li Rui smiled evilly, "My eyelids keep twitching today, and I always feel like something is going to happen." As he spoke, he took Xia Yingluo's exquisite little handbag in a gentlemanly manner and took her into his car. Crow's mouth, Xia Yingluo snorted, but she was still happy to have her brother with her, so she got into his car. Li Rui started the car and turned left and right in the city skillfully, praising, "That wild man of yours knows how to choose a place, Snow Shanson. If you want to say that we have the best snow viewing restaurant in the city, this place must be the best. There is no place for the second to dare to be the first." Xia Yingluo corrected unhappily, "He is not a wild man." "You are a wild man without your parents' permission." Li Rui never tired of arguing with her. Xia Yingluo lay on the car window and looked at the scenery. It was afternoon, and the streets were crowded with people. The reflections of high-rise buildings passed by, and the ground was covered with white snow. Young people having snowball fights and snowmen piled in all kinds of strange shapes could be seen everywhere. She was in a great mood, humming softly, and suddenly turned to Li Rui and said, "What about you? I've already made up my mind. When will you seriously find a girlfriend? My parents didn't say anything, but in their hearts I'm all worried about you. A few days ago, my mother and father were discussing how to introduce some good girls to you. Has it been settled?" Li Rui ignored the long string of words that followed her. "Huh?" Xia Yingluo blinked in confusion. "I mean, are you really settled?" Li Rui drove the car without squinting and asked her, "Wei Lingnan, for the rest of my life?" She was startled by his question. Only then did he remember that he had unknowingly used the words "it's settled." It seemed that he had subconsciously promised Wei Lingnan this life. From then on, the years were peaceful and dependent on each other. As she thought this, a smile appeared on the corner of her lips, and she hummed softly. Li Rui rolled his eyes at her in the rearview mirror. "Come on." He wanted to say that there are thousands of good men in the world, why hang themselves on a tree in Wei Lingnan? But he understands very well that a girl who falls in love cannot listen to any advice. Love is like a moth flying into a flame, so it is wonderful but also hurtful. At least at this moment, Li Rui was a little sad. His sister had a boyfriend. Why did he feel as uncomfortable as being broken up in love? "I hope Yingluo is happy, but I am reluctant to have another man in her life. which is a conflicting mood. He could see that his sister was serious, so he sent her here today. He wanted the man to know that she was loved by her father and brother, so that the man would not dare to bully her in the future. Li Rui was thinking about something while driving, Xia Yingluo was also thinking about something, and the car fell silent for a while. Arrived in front of the restaurant. The fine snow is falling, and there is a slight chill in the air. Xia Yingluo picked up her handbag and got out of the car. Li Rui told her, "Have a good time. I'll be drinking nearby. If you need anything, call me." Xia Yingluo waved her hand with a crooked eyebrow and walked into the restaurant. The restaurant is warm as spring, with a faint fragrance in the air and the sound of soft music. She quickly found Wei Lingnan. The man was sitting on a sofa by the window. He was elegant and slender, holding a red rose between his fingers and looking at her quietly. A smile appeared on her lips unconsciously, and she sat down opposite him. "It's been a long wait." Wei Lingnan's voice was very quiet. "I just came here not long ago." He called the waiter to serve the meal. "I'm afraid you're hungry, so I ordered the food first." "You won't mind," he said, handing the delicate rose between his fingers to her. "It's for you." Today he is like an ordinary human being in love. Xia Yingluo smiled slightly and took the rose. "It's so beautiful." Meals were served to the table quickly, and they were all her favorite dishes. Xia Yingluo found that this man was really kind to her. Although he rarely said sweet words and was a little moody, whenever she needed anything, he would always take care of everything silently. She ate her meal in a good mood and enjoyed this rare peaceful time with him. When she was half full, she remembered something. "You said on the phone that you had a gift for me. Could it be this rose?" "Of course not," he smiled. "What is that?" Her eyes flashed with a charming light. "Looking forward to it." Wei Lingnan took out a small, exquisite velvet box and pushed it in front of her. "Open it and take a look." Xia Yingluo held her breath. With a woman's intuition, she guessed something just by the appearance of the box. She opened the small box almost tremblingly. Sure enough, a beautiful metal ring lay quietly inside, under the dim and romantic lights of the restaurant. The bottom exudes a moving luster. She felt like she was almost speechless. "Yingluo, the proposal from that day is still valid." Wei Lingnan looked at her calmly. "This is the engagement ring I made specially for you. It is made of the debris of meteors I brought when I drifted from the universe. Try it on." Hundreds of millions of years of obsession turned into this small ring, and he poured countless efforts into it. Under his expectant gaze, Xia Yingluo carefully stretched out her hand and picked up the ring. "I wanted to put it on my finger, but I was a little timid, so the hand holding the ring paused in mid-air for a moment." Wei Lingnan smiled, held her hand with one hand, took the ring with the other, and was about to put it on for her. "Wait!" Suddenly, a voice interrupted them. The two of them turned around and saw Gu Jingxiu appearing at the table without knowing it. He was looking at them with the desolate and vicissitudes of life, as if he had suffered a huge betrayal and a huge injustice. "Wei Lingnan," she called Wei Lingnan's name word by word. "Why do you love me and you treat me like this?" Xia Yingluo was slightly startled. What trouble was Gu Jingxiu going to make? "He doesn't love you at all, and he never said he loved you." Xia Yingluo defended her love. "Lingnan told me that he is just acquaintance with you and has no personal feelings at all." "Miss Gu Jingxiu, please stop being so sentimental. This is a scheduled release. It may not be on time at 10 o'clock, it depends on whether I wake up." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 1309. Chapter 1309 Bloody Engagement. Gu Jingxiu didn't even glance at her, staring at Wei Lingnan with an expression that seemed sad or happy. Wei Lingnan's voice was indifferent, "Get out." Gu Jingxiu did not move, and opened her mouth slightly. A strange sound came out of her mouth, which seemed to resonate with thousands of creatures, and also seemed to come from the most mysterious melody in the distant starry sky. Xia Yingluo's expression suddenly changed. This kind of voice, this kind of sound range that was completely non-human, she had heard it from Wei Lingnan before. This is the language of Scatana. How could Gu Jingxiu do this? She looked at Wei Lingnan in shock and saw that Wei Lingnan's face was pale and even the hand holding the fork was trembling slightly. She had never seen him lose his temper like this before. The man who remained calm despite the collapse of the mountain disappeared, and was replaced by a stranger who seemed to be about to collapse at any moment. He replied something in the language of Scatana. Gu Jingxiu repeated what she just said in the same language. The strange sound waves of the two people vibrated and blended in the air, forming a unique melody. Xia Yingluo sat very close to them. She was so shaken by this melody that her internal organs seemed to be broken. She covered her heart uncomfortably, and there was a fishy sweet taste in her throat. I wanted to tell them to stop, but they only coughed and coughed up a mouthful of blood foam. The enchanting red color is shocking on the white fingertips. But Wei Lingnan didn't even glance at her from the corner of his eye, he just looked at Gu Jingxiu intently, dropped the fork in his hand to the ground, stood up and hugged Gu Jingxiu tightly in his arms. The strange language of Scatana came out of his mouth one after another, and the whole restaurant shook because it could not bear it. The guests covered their ears and screamed and fled in panic. The crystal lamps, windows, and glass the utensils shattered one after another, and clusters of crystal fireworks exploded in mid-air. Xia Yingluo's position was too close, and she couldn't even escape. Her legs were weak, she kept coughing up blood, and couldn't move. She wondered if she would die if she continued like this. The body felt like it was being cut and pulled by countless invisible sharp blades, as if it would be shattered in the next moment. She slid feebly down the chair to the floor, her fingers twitching, trying hard to pull Wei Lingnan, trying to get even the slightest bit of his attention. However, despite all his strength, he could only barely touch his leather shoes, and he didn't even lower his head. The rapid Catana language was still coming out of his mouth. Gu Jingxiu was held in his arms and felt that her body was being embedded in his body. It was painful, but she felt an unprecedented pleasure and satisfaction. The entire restaurant was in a mess like a typhoon passing through. All the windows were broken, the crystal lamps were smashed to pieces on the ground, cups and plates were overturned, tables and chairs were messy, everything was just debris. Only he and Wei Lingnan stood in the middle of the storm, embracing each other. Gu Jingxiu lowered his head and looked at Xia Yingluo, who was crawling on the ground in embarrassment, as if looking at a humble ant. She won. In this smokeless emotional war, because of this strange language, she became the final winner. She finally understood what Wei Lingnan wanted, and that only she could give him what he wanted. Xia Yingluo had no chance of winning, not at all. Seeing that Xia Yingluo could no longer hold on anymore and was about to faint, Gu Jingxiu showed a malicious smile on her face and finally said to Wei Lingnan in human language, "Nan, I just remembered what happened before, this human body I can't bear it, so I can only pronounce your name in the language of Scatana, but I can't say anything else." Only then did Wei Lingnan stop his strange language, stop and look at her, and switch back to human speech. "It's okay, Aluo, it's okay, I'm surprised that you can pronounce my name, you know how hard it has been for me to find you all these years." Gu Jingxiu smiled. At the Du family's banquet some time ago, she accepted the gift that Wei Lingnan originally gave to Xiaoling, which was a set of skincare products. After that, she had many dreams one after another at night, dreaming of a beautiful lavender planet, war, a little princess, a queen, and a guardian. In the dream, she experienced many things as a little princess, including the encounter with Wei Lingnan, the days of fighting side by side. Only then did she realize that the conversation she overheard in the bathroom that day was actually true. Wei Lingnan was not a human being at all, but an alien. She remembered everything. It turned out that she was the princess and queen of that planet. She died for some reason, and now she awakened for unknown reasons. As soon as she woke up, she came to see Wei Lingnan as soon as possible. She knew that Wei Lingnan loved her from the beginning to the end, but he mistook Xia Yingluo for a Luo. I'm back. She held Wei Lingnan's face with both hands, but with some demonstration in the corners of her eyes, she glanced at Xia Yingluo, who was lying on the ground in pain. Nan, you are mine, forever and ever. Yes, eternal life. Wei Lingnan's voice was still trembling slightly, and he looked at her with great ecstasy, as if she was the only one left in the world. Thinking about it day and night. How many times in his dreams did he long for Aluo to wake up and pronounce his real name again in the words of his hometown. Unexpectedly, today, when he was caught off guard, he actually heard it. That voice was like the most beautiful sound of nature, and he had no power to resist. Nan Gujingxiu smiled with satisfaction. Xia Yingluo's expression became paler and paler, and her fingers twitched slightly, not only because of the sound wave impact just now, but also because she heard the conversation between Gujingxiu and Wei Lingnan. She had been worried that she was not a Luo, but it turned out that she really wasn't, and the worst result happened. Gujingxiu was the Luo that Wei Lingnan never forgot. The love he had just begun was like a gorgeous firework that withered the moment Gujingxiu pronounced Wei Lingnan's real name. She coughed hard, like a dying beast. She exhausted all her strength and finally made a hoarse voice, Wei Lingnan. Wei Lingnan then realized that she was still there. Looking down, he saw her fragile body and the splotches of blood, and there was a faint flash of regret in his eyes. Gujingxiu's voice sounded at the right time, Nan, I have a lot to say to you. Do you still care about these irrelevant people? Wei Lingnan's expression turned sharp. He knew how strong his queen was in possessing her, and the trace of regret in her eyes disappeared. She glanced at Xia Yingluo indifferently. I will withdraw my proposal, and we will have nothing to do with her in the future. Xia Yingluo's body was shaken. Although she had expected such a result, the words from his mouth still made her feel like she was hit hard. She only felt a pain in her heart, a sweetness in her throat, and blood gushed out. I know you have a lot of questions, don't worry, Gujingxiu just thinks it's beautiful. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1310. Chapter 1310. This is strange. She felt ridiculous. Accept a relationship with joy, but with anxiety and longing, thinking that you will be happy in the future. Who knew that all her efforts were so fragile and collapsed in front of Gujingxiu's short words? She was in excruciating pain, her internal organs seemed to be broken, and her eyesight turned black. Gujingxiu looked at her from above, with a contemptuous smile in the corner of his eyes. Nan, let's go. Wei Lingnan stopped looking at Xia Yingluo, who was lying on the ground, took Gujingxiu's hand, and turned to leave. A person appeared next to the ruin-like gate. He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. He ran to Xia Yingluo, who was lying on the ground dying in a few steps. Yingluo, Yingluo, what's wrong with you? Hold on, it was Li Rui, who was holding the hand. The younger sister hugged her and looked at the shocking blood on her lips and her face as thin as gold paper. She raised her head and turned her fierce eyes to Wei Lingnan and Gujingxiu. What did you do to her? He was drinking in a nearby shop when he heard the commotion outside. Many customers were screaming and covering their ears and rushing out. He knew something was wrong in the shop. He was worried about his sister and hurried over to check. As a result, I saw the scene in front of me. How could Wei Lingnan be so close to Gujingxiu? Didn't he go out on a date with his sister today? Li Rui's expression became more fierce and he said to Wei Lingnan, please tell me clearly what happened today, otherwise don't blame me for being rude to you. Xia Yingluo was held in her arms by her brother. Her internal organs were injured, but she still managed to grab her brother's sleeves and said in a weak voice, "Brother, forget it. That man has treated her so cruelly, what's the point of saying more now? It's better to retain the last bit of dignity and not let people say that the girls from the Li family are stalking." Li Rui felt even more distressed. His sister, who was cherished and cared for like jewels by all her family members, had never suffered at all since she was a child. How could she be trampled on like this? "Wei Lingnan, you have to give me an explanation today," he said to Wei Lingnan even more fiercely, and then looked at Gu Jingxiu, "And you, a bitch, you are such a piece of trash, how dare you argue with my sister?" Gu Jingxiu was being played with by Wei Lingnan, smiling happily. The angrier Xia Yingluo and her family became, the happier she became, and all the arrogance she had suffered some time ago was gone. She said, "Tell your sister to stop stalking her." Nandu said she recognized the wrong person. The understatement aroused all Li Rui's anger. He carefully put down Xia Yingluo in his arms, stood up, and punched Gu Jingxiu. Normally he doesn't hit women, but this woman was too arrogant and bullied her sister, so he didn't mind making an exception. But his arm was grabbed by a steely hand. Wei Lingnan threw him out effortlessly and slammed him onto a broken table. The table collapsed with an earth-shattering sound and created a shallow crater on the ground. Li Rui also spat out a mouthful of blood. "Brother," Xia Yingluo called eagerly. "Don't let me hear you being disrespectful to a Luo again," Wei Lingnan said coldly. Li Rui was stunned for a moment before he realized that the Luo he was referring to was Gu Jingxiu. What exactly is going on? Why does Gu Jingxiu have such an alias? And the strength of the man in front of me is simply amazing. Li Rui also claims to have received the world's top fighting training. However, he was defeated by the opponent in only one round. There is no suspense. What kind of perverted monster is this? He looked at Wei Lingnan with eyes full of hostility and vigilance. Wei Lingnan stopped looking at him. He lowered his head and asked Gu Jingxiu gently, "Are you okay?" Gu Jingxiu shook his head and looked at him tenderly, "With you here, how could anything happen to me?" So Wei Lingnan smiled and left with her, leaving the dying Xia Yingluo and Li Rui, who was injured to an unknown extent, without looking back. "Brother." Xia Yingluo's voice was filled with tears. She struggled to crawl a few inches toward her brother. She exhausted all her strength and could no longer move an inch. "Don't worry," Li Rui spoke with some difficulty, but spoke clearly, "I'm fine." Just after he finished speaking, he coughed unpreparedly, and blood gushes out again. Xia Yingluo was heartbroken. If it wasn't for her, how could her brother have done this? "It really doesn't matter to me," Li Rui smiled at her reassuringly, but because of the injury and pain, the smile looked grinning, instead it looked embarrassed and terrifying. He endured the pain and took out his cell phone and called his family. Rescue came soon and they were rushed to the hospital. The results of the hospital examination showed that Xia Yingluo's lungs were damaged by sound waves, or to be more precise, the powerful sound waves almost shattered her internal organs. The doctor said she was very lucky and was only one step away from death, so she must stay in bed and rest. As for Li Rui, 2 ribs were broken and he had to stay in bed to rest. Li Lei and Xiaoling came to see them and took them home. Xiaoling's usually carefree look was filled with anger and anxiety. She sat on the edge of the bed and held Xia Yingluo's hand. "It's okay, Mom will always be with you." Xia Yingluo looked at her with a sad expression and was speechless. Xiaoling felt desolate in her heart. "It's just a man. If you don't want it, don't want it. To be honest, your parents have always been worried about you and Wei Lingnan being together. You are so beautiful and young, and you will definitely find someone who loves you in the future." Human. Xia Yingluo tried to give her mother a comforting smile, but it was uglier than crying. Later, Xia Moyan also came to see her. After checking her injuries, he said, "That person almost killed you. Even if we break up, he won't be so careless. It's so inhumane. Yingluo, you are lucky to have seen his true face early. If it's true, with him, who knows what will happen in the future." Xia Yingluo nodded vigorously, yes. She also tried to think in a good direction, but her heart still felt broken and painful. Xia Moyan asked her the whole story. She told him everything. Xia Moyan pondered for a moment, it's very strange. How could Gu Jingxiu be from the Scatena planet? I can't see the fate of Wei Lingnan, but I can see the general direction of Gu Jingxiu. She is a human being. It is accurate. I am also a human being. Xia Yingluo smiled bitterly. Weren't you considered to be the reincarnation of the Scatena star before? That's different, Xia Moyan said. You were born here and were sheltered. If you were born in an ordinary family, you were really the reincarnation of an alien and would have been obliterated by the will of the planet. Yingluo didn't know how much effort the Li family and the Xia family had made over the years to allow her to live safely. End of this chapter.